Today with Damien Tiernan on WLR.
With thanks to mulliganspharmacy.com. Life's a beach with Mulligan's Pharmacies. Open late on the Dunmore Road and in Tramore.
Good morning and welcome to Wednesday's edition of Daisha Today. It is the 4th of September. Our text and WhatsApp line numbers 083 3333 975. And we also have, you can call Daisha Today, Audrey is there, at 051 846 123. We're going to be going live to London in a few minutes to talk about the very latest, what's happening in the Brexit shenanigans. We're also going to be talking to Niall Mulligan of Mulligan's Pharmacies of how to treat head lice. Anytime you mention head lice, people just go, ugh. We're also going to be doing an exclusive interview with Gabriel Hines. Gabriel Hines, he's the senior roads engineer with Waterford City and County Council about the debt trap that is the Carroll's Cross Junction. We're going to be talking about parenting and why parents need to take more time to disconnect from their phones and reassure their children that we value them. And also we've got a lot more on many matters, particularly that incident that happened in Portlaw there last week. Firstly, we have Tom Murphy joining us this morning and Elaine Fennelly will be in presently. Good morning, Tom Murphy.
Good morning.
Tom, people would know you as a well-established businessman in Waterford City and County, one of the main business spokespersons over the years, somebody who has contributed to charities, continued to do an awful lot of good work regarding out and about clean-ups and supporting the hurling teams and supporting all sorts of different initiatives. Elaine, you can sit down there, whatever suits you, that's perfect. Elaine from Crystal Valley Tech. Good morning, Elaine.
Good morning.
Thank you for joining us.
Delighted to be here.
And this matter arises, Tom, because you sent a letter last week, a very specific letter to me and a number of other people. Explain what was in that and why you sent that.
I sent a letter last week to you because I was at a meeting in town with a friend of mine, and it's to do with a charity that I'm involved in. And afterwards we had a meeting with one of the councillors. It had to do with the proposed, or I want to say proposed, but the possibility or the likelihood or not of the Waterford Garda headquarters being moved out of Waterford. And I started to list out the various things that had happened over the years and the various things that Waterford lost. And I was driving back to work and it reminded me of an article that was written about 45, 50 years ago by the late John Healy, who was a devoted West of Ireland man. He was when I asked you earlier, I think he was with the Irish Press and then he was with the Irish Times. But he is beloved West of Ireland. He wrote, "Nobody shouted stop." And after our conversation at that meeting the other day, I was just thinking about all of the things that have been lost to Waterford in recent years. And I just started to think, nobody shouted stop. And the decisions that were made about those organisations, mostly state organisations, like I'll give you an example of a few. Like the ambulance dispatch was moved to Wexford. The IDA regional office was moved to Cork. The Waterford City and Council VEC was moved to Wexford, done a stroke of a pen by Brendan Howland. The ESB regional office was moved to Cork. The Irish Water headquarters was set up in Kilkenny. Now we're talks about the Garda station, where there's somewhere in north of 450 jobs. Now I know that won't impact on the number of jobs, but the Waterford headquarters of the Gardaí.
What about the hospital?
I'll come to that in a moment. I will come to that in a moment.
Like people would say the hospital, there's loads of money going into the hospital. What figures do you have for us?
I have figures that are shocking. And these are not kind of bull figures. These are from Freedom of Information. At an announcement in the last few days, the hospitals in Cork have been granted 2 billion. The Waterford hospitals have been granted 30 million. And now if you want to talk about the WIT, over the last 4 or 5 years, the 6 universities in Ireland have been getting funding at the rate of $1 million a week each. $1 million a week each. This is for developing further facilities in their campuses. Waterford Regional, or WIT, has received nothing, not a shilling.
Now, what we have here is a very, very interesting way of analysing a situation, Elaine and Tom. Tom Murphy is a car salesman. You are an established businessman. You've really, really good business there. You've lots of family working with you. You've got grandchildren growing up. You look at your grandson going into Water Park into second year and you think, where's he going to get a job at Waterford?
I said to you, Damien, earlier, I was looked at my eldest grandson that I love dearly the other day, and I saw him going off to first day in second year. And it just reminded me, my second son, Richard, there was 10 or 12 of his buddies used to knock around together. Now, Richard is 41. There is not one of his friends. He is the only one from his group in Waterford. He's the only one. All the rest are in Dublin or London or America or wherever.
Now, we thought long and hard about having this item, okay? Because we are part of Waterford and we want to develop Waterford and we want to see Waterford thrive and build. We've had Elaine in recently talking about it. She just handed me a document there, a brochure saying the Tech Companies of Crystal Valley 2019 edition. And this idea of the message that is put out there, like Tom would be very, very careful over the years, Elaine, of giving the right message because business sentiment is important. So you don't want to be talking down a place. And it's this idea of when is the right time to say stop.
Now.
And Tom Murphy is saying it's the right time to get out there and shout and say we need more. Now, you are part of a group that have developed a bottom-up approach to development and that you have jobs coming in stream and there's jobs there. Do you agree or disagree with Tom's analysis?
It's very hard as a Waterford person to disagree with anything he says. I totally agree. But Damien, if you were selling your house in the morning, you wouldn't bring people in and show you the cracks, the holes and all the damage that's been done. And similarly in business, what I try to do in Crystal Valley Tech is I absolutely agree with the figures, but I like to put forward the positive side and really dwell on all of the incredible things. And as long as Tom's list is of things that have gone wrong, which I agree with, there's also an equivalent list of the positives, the growth in pharma, tech, their engineering clusters, the Crystal Valley Tech. And I could talk as long as Tom about all of those. So I just think it's really important on the airwaves and in the media, in a world of a digital footprint and of all of the social media, that as well as the negatives, we get the positives out there and we get people very aware of them.
And Tom is aware of that, and we've had this discussion before, Tom.
But I'm trying to say stop. I'm trying to say stop. What's gone, it's gone. We can't get it back. But let there be no more. There is nobody more passionate about Waterford than me.
Totally.
I'm 50 years working in this city. I'm 40 years running my own business. I employ 50 people. And I worry. For me at this stage, my sons are running the business. For me, I'm thinking of the community. I'm thinking of, it's heartbreaking. You drive down the quay next Sunday evening and you will see it, or when the colleges go back, and you will see our brightest and best getting on buses. And then 3 or 4 weeks after that, there won't be as many because they're staying on in Dublin. And then when you come to next term after Christmas, they might only come back twice a term. They never come back. I'm trying to say stop and get our politicians, and I'm not political. This is not a political announcement. I'm not involved in politics. I'm a member of no political party. But our politicians seem to be asleep at the wheel.
You would have supported Fianna Fáil in the past. You would have been a big proponent of Martin Cullen because you believe that Martin would have brought a lot as a minister.
Damien, I come from a staunch Fine Gael family,
yes,
but I haven't voted for Fine Gael since 1984 because I didn't agree with the way they did things. Martin Cullen, I was his director of his chairman of his finance committee for 3 elections.
And the reason I mentioned that is you picked people in terms of support on the basis of what they can deliver for a city or a county.
What they can deliver for the region, not just the city or county. I was in Dublin yesterday. I was going up my gate at 8 o'clock and a pal of mine was coming down and he just bipped at me or flashed at me and he left me off. I drove down the quay yesterday morning at 8:05. I was back in town yesterday at 1:45, having been at a meeting in Dublin. And I was in town for my lunch at 1:45. Now, if that was pre the motorway, you'd be lucky to get home at 5 o'clock yesterday evening.
Elaine, you can see where we're coming from on this.
Oh, I totally can.
And that message, and you're right about the message. Both of you are right. And it's this idea of, is it positivity? Is it negativity? Is it the reality that we have to talk about? So the reality must, in my opinion, combine all those different elements.
I totally agree. And look, I look back on the history of Waterford and I'm no way political, never been involved in any party. I don't come from a political family. But any time we have got ministers, it's made a huge difference. And counties that have that big representation do better. So there's an onus on people to be very careful about who they put forward and to think about the city and to actually get off their backside and vote. So many people don't even bother voting. Our turnouts are terrible. So it's hard to argue with all of that, like we all need to do. But just like we have a call to action for our politicians, for our people, we also need outside money. We need private investment in our city. And private investment will only come in a city where the city believe in themselves. If I was selling a car in the morning, I'm not going to point out to a potential, buyer all the problems with the engine and the windscreen, blah, blah, blah. And just the same way I feel with the city, sometimes there can be a little bit too much of a focus on the negative and that we need to talk it up. And I think you're right, Damien. It is, how do we combine the both? How do we make people aware of the brilliance that's happening out there?
What do you think of what Elaine is saying there, Tom?
I look, Elaine would be a penalty without a goalie as far as I'm concerned with what she's saying. But what I'm trying to say to is, over the years we've been chipped away. It's been political politicians. They haven't been based on reality. I mean, you just think of the VEC one, for example, the TEW. The headquarters of that is in Wexford. They have one school in Wexford. I think there's 5 or 6 in the county. And this is all just political expediency. But none of our politicians said, what's happening here? And this is my point. Like, I have been to the fore in many things in this city over the years. And, I'm now looking at it. As I said, I'm not involved. 5 years ago or 6 years ago, I wouldn't have had the time to be here. But as I said, my family are now running my business. And thank God for that. But I'm thinking more from a community perspective, from our children's children, and all the wonderful people. I mean, I've got, as I said, the best part of 50 people working. Some of those guys have kids going into college this year.
A lot of mortgages, yeah.
Yeah. And what we want are better jobs. Now, I'll just tell you this. Across the road from me about 15 years ago, when the Department of Lands was moved down here, there was a lovely man moved in across the road. And he said to me one evening, I was picking stuff up on the footpath and he was doing the same at the other side and we were just talking. He said, I think I've died at times and gone to heaven. Because he said, I have a boat in Dunmore East. I can actually walk to work. I'm a member of a golf club. Stuff that I could never even think of in Dublin. Now, we should be selling that because this is a wonderful place to live, to work, rest and play. You can be at the beach, and it was quite a good summer. My grandchildren were swimming in the Gillimeen every day. But I am just trying to create the awareness, the money about the hospital, the money about WIT that didn't come in.
So do you think, again, I'll come to you in a second, Elaine, we've had an email in from Eddie Mulligan, for example. He's written to Commissioner Harris about the proposed move, and other politicians have as well, regarding the Garda headquarters. Do you think our politicians are underrepresenting us, Tom?
Yes. Absolutely yes. I mean, Mr. Halligan is a junior minister. And I haven't heard any, we had a situation a year and a half ago where I was asked by the Chamber of Commerce, would I go to a meeting in Dublin? This was about the borough boundary extension. And one of the TDs in the city wasn't in favour of it.
And what about Sinn Féin?
I prefer not to go there because I find it very hard to speak about any political organisation that refused to condemn the murder of a Garda sergeant in the doing of his daily work. And
what about Fianna Fáil?
I would have to say I'm apolitical, but I would have to say now, and I put my hand up and say that a Fianna Fáil government or a Fianna Fáil minister or junior minister in this area couldn't do worse than is happening at the moment.
And what about Fine Gael?
I like Paddy Coffey. He's a decent guy. He's a good guy. He's a decent guy. And I sent him a note when he won his law case. He's a decent guy. And I mean, he stood up to John Paul Phelan in Kilkenny. And when you have John Paul Phelan, McGuinness and Big Phil Hogan in Kilkenny, and they would crucify Waterford if they could.
And Senator Paddy Coffey is a senator. He's not a TD.
Yes.
We have a Fine Gael TD.
Yeah. He's retired. And he had no interest in, he spent the last couple of years in America.
He would say that he's been here, he's done a lot of work behind the scenes.
I don't know. I knew his dad well, and his dad was one of those that was credited with keeping the hospital here in 1985.
That's true.
And I would give, as I said to you, I'm apolitical, but I can tell you this, if I were, and I'm not going to be, I'm nearly 70 years of age, if I were a TD, I would know what was going on, and I would know, and I'd be shouting from the rooftops.
You could still run for election now, Pence is, and there's lads running, we'll be talking about that. Elaine, what Tom mentions there about politics and the connection of politics and representation, in other words, the state, with private enterprise. Is there a symbiotic relationship there?
Look, I think there is. And, you know, when you were asking Tom there about the political parties, I was hoping you wouldn't do the same to me because I wouldn't have an opinion on them individually. I have kind of ignored that and I've just jumped in and said, I'm one person. What sector do I know? I know tech. I know it inside out, 20 years in it. What can I do to make a difference? So I've set up a not-for-profit, and without a single red cent from the IDA or EI to date, we've managed to create a huge awareness. We've worked together. Companies that are in competition with each other are coming out and working together and making a difference. People in Dublin, Limerick, Galway contact me on a daily basis. They've heard about us. We've put us on the map. So in a way, I don't sit around waiting for the politicians. It's not a world I know anything about. So what I'm doing a call out to people is, if you know your sector and you want to make a difference, get off your backside and do something. We see engineers doing it now. They've set up Engineer the Southeast, a cluster that's going to be like Crystal Valley Tech. There's an insurance accelerator up in Carlow. There's lots of stuff happening. And I'm reminded of a Dr. Rowe analogy. He does this thing where he talks about growing a bamboo tree. You plant seeds and nothing happens for 7 years. And then in year 7, you get something like 70 feet growth in 70 days. And this reminds me of all the stuff that is happening out there that the average listener may not be aware of. There's huge advancements across the world, pharma, fintech, and all of that will come to fruition. So while I absolutely agree with everything Tom is saying, and it kills me, like one of my own family members has a pacemaker, believe me, this is very close to my own family. So like I'm well aware of all the negatives, but I just feel like the bit that I can do is focusing on the positive and the changes I can make.
And that is so important. And Tom's not denying that.
Yeah.
He's saying that is part and parcel. And it's that message. For example, the Waterford News and Star, the papers in Dungarvan today, they're all trying to get the positive message out. And yet, the Phoenix article in the News and Star every week would talk about what's needed, and some people would give out about it, Elaine. I can see you, and I know it would frustrate you because you think, is that negativity bringing the tone down?
Damien, sorry, can I just come in there for a sec? When I was researching,
but loads of people would say that that's so important.
Well, Damien, the private sector, and as you rightly said, are doing their bit. But when you look at the public monies that we should be getting our fair share of, we're not. We are not getting our fair share. This has not been negative. I mean, I sent this letter to you the other day, and I wrote to all of the TDs and I wrote to all of the councillors. And one of the councillors replied to me. But I just feel that nobody shouted stop at all of the 5 or 6 or 7 major employers. Now, the knock-on effect there is those people have good jobs. You take the Gardaí, it's a good job. They're our peacekeepers. They're the people who are looked up to in the community. Their children will be part of the community. They go to school, they go to college. They build houses here, they get married here. If you look at the gap, I've only one daughter. She's a lawyer by profession, and she's in New York, my only daughter. She left here in 2012 or 13, because she couldn't get a job. And, you know, we have, and if you look at it, if you want to be really blunt, I would say that we have one of the highest percentages of lower paid jobs in the country.
And the recent figures I understand from different surveys that have done would indicate ourselves in the border region would be like that. But again, there will be other research that would show that there is a growth and that positivity is developing. This is a debate which has really got the people talking, because we've got people ringing and texting in. James calls in to say he doesn't think Waterford's problems are worse than any other city or county apart from maybe Dublin. The same thing is happening in Kilkenny. Taxi driver has rung in to say another thing gone from Waterford is the granting of over 300 taxi licences. An inspector, you have to go to Kilkenny now to get that done. Kieran says Tom Murphy is right. It's hard to argue with anything you're saying, but what good is it talking about this if we're bringing things down and preaching to convert it? Others are saying focus on the positive, as Elaine is doing. That's 100% right. Elaine, you're right on this. Others are saying Tom is right. He's bang on the nail. Others are saying Tom's list is accurate and frightening. It represents, in my opinion, asset strimming from successive governments. That's from Joe Kelly. Damien, why are we discussing this? Why talk about the past? Why talk about negativity? Tom shouldn't be raising these issues. Others are saying that you should be raising them. Elaine.
I did pull a face about the Phoenix there, and the reason I did that, Damien, is because what drives me nuts is people say, oh, the IDA have underperformed, they haven't brought enough jobs to the region, and people forget, like, when IDA they come here, they choose where they buy. It's like you, if you love Tramore and you want to live out there, no matter how many houses I show you on the Dunmore Road, you won't be convinced. And that's the same way with the IDA visits. They come over here and they're favourably predisposed to certain areas versus others, so it's not always the IDA's job to do that, you know. So just sometimes it frustrates me. And when we do have an IDA visit, it usually lasts 2 days, and guess what, they usually stay in local hotels and they usually read the News and Star and the Munster and they listen to local radio. These are intelligent people who do their homework about investing in regions. So, you know, it drives me nuts when I say all this negativity in the paper.
No, see, we've got to see.
No, that's my opinion.
No,
I know
your
IDA visits
opinion,
inside out.
But Martin Luther King once said, the day we remain silent about things that matter is the day we begin to die. And the reality is, and you talk about the IDA, my understanding is since 2016, other than there is what used to be the old Woodlock Convent in Portlaw, other than whatever jobs were created there,
yeah.
There has been no IDA jobs here since 2016.
There was 100 jobs announced in July for ASG, Allstate Sales Group, and they credited Crystal Valley Tech with one of the reasons they moved
congratulations
here.
And well done. As I said to you, I'm trying to, if people can't listen to the facts, I'm only stating the facts. Nobody wants to look forward more than I do.
No, Tom, but I'm making the point that in a world of digital footprints and social media and Googling, it's not, you know, sometimes there is a downside to putting too much negativity out there, because you've got to realise who the audience is. And if I'm a CEO over from Atlanta and I'm picking up a paper and our own business people don't believe in the city, why the hell would I come here?
You got this wrong. It's not.
No, I haven't got it wrong. I'm just giving an opposing
I'm
viewpoint.
sorry. It's not confidence in the city. Like, I've put my money where my mouth is.
You have?
We have one of the most best equipped dealerships in the country that cost 15 million euros to put there, and I'm still paying for it. But because I believe in this city, I believe in this region. All belong to me. I'm from Dunhill, where I go back 3 or 4 generations. But somebody has got to say stop. What I'm saying is stop. I'm not talking, I'm only telling the people who are out there what has happened. I'm trying to stop now, to get people to stand up and stop the removal of the Garda headquarters. And also, when we didn't touch on it, WIT. There's talk about that going to either Kilkenny or Carlow. We've got to say stop.
Rose has phoned in to say, well done to Tom and Elaine. If our TDs were half as good as them, we'd have a great city. Another person is saying it's easy for Tom to talk positive. The vast amount of people in Ireland are struggling. There's no spending power. That's from Joe. Fair play to Tom Murphy. He's great. He has the balls to speak out. Tom Murphy, says Councillor McGuinness, Sinn Féin councillor, says, no, you're wrong. His points are valid. But as a former fundraiser for Fianna Fáil, he has to take stock of his own role in supporting politicians that has divested from Waterford. So the political thing Conor is raising there. Another texter, look, of course there are positive things happening, but we can't ignore the fact that Waterford is being deliberately neglected and the fact sabotaged by some useless TDs not doing their jobs.
Yeah, look, I don't want to get personal. I'm in business, and as I said, I am trying to be positive. I'm part of a group. We had a meeting this week with the politicians in relation to the upcoming budget and the CO2 emissions, which again politically it's kind of the right thing to do, and the lack of information that's coming out in relation to, you know, the environment and all the rest of it and the alternatives. Like the politicians across all parties don't know what they're talking about. You know,
Elaine?
I'm on this radio for one reason. I want more people to follow me on Crystal Valley Tech on LinkedIn and social media, because I've seen the power of what I can do without a penny in my organisation. Great support from the EI and IDA in terms of Brendan MacDonald and Brian Fives. They've been brilliant with supports, introductions and all the rest. But you know what? If only one thing comes out of a chat like this is that people do more positive stuff. And I do agree with Tom. I think he is absolutely nailed a lot of the points there. But in a world where negative news gets so much more headlines than positive, you know, I have to dwell on the positives, and that's what we're all about. People will come and invest here because we have a growing, vibrant city that our own business leaders believe in.
I'm trying to, not to cut across you, what I'm trying to do is to stop the Gardaí moving headquarters. What I'm trying to do is to get people to react and try to get the headquarters of WIT remain in Waterford.
And what we have done on this programme, and consistently do it, and Billy did it and Eamon did it, is that we will report on the good news, on the jobs, and we will also discuss how to make things better. And that's what we're doing here this morning. And I know that's why you're here this morning, to discuss how to make things better.
Great support.
And that's the message within that. Lisa says, well done to all involved in Crystal Valley Tech. And also more texts coming in to say well done to you, Tom, to raise this issue and on your call to stop the hemorrhaging. Isn't that what you're saying?
Yes.
Elaine, thank you so much. Crystal Valley Tech, follow you online, LinkedIn, the whole lot.
Thanks a million, Damien.
Tom Murphy, follow you out to the Cork Road.
Yeah.
And listen, the two of you go out for a chat outside now and
you'll be selling me a car.
And right the wrongs of the world, will you?
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Deisha Today with Damien Tiernan on WLR.
With thanks to Mulligan's. Did you know you can collect your Blue Club points online? See mulliganspharmacy.com.
Keep your texts and comments coming in 083 333 975, or you can call Audrey on 051 846 123. Mary has just phoned Audrey a second ago and said well done to Tom and Elaine for everything they're saying is true. Waterford people are too quiet. We need to take to the streets. Or this is what we'll be leaving to our grandchildren. Tom has made money from Waterford. I don't even know he's on the radio today. He's doing us no favours talking about these issues. Another texter saying Tom is 100% right. We've buried our heads in the sand for too long, and where has it got us? These issues need to be addressed. I 100% agree with Tom. That's from Ellie in Waterford. We shouldn't be knocking Kilkenny, says another person. Leave the hurling out of it. Tom started on the quay. No one wants to get caught. The largest quay in Ireland turned into a car park. Another person says, I totally agree. Elaine has a point, but it needs to be said when it is right to say stop. Please don't also point out that Tom categorically did not write to me. I don't know what that's about. Tom Murphy is dead right and Elaine is dead right. Both of them are dead right. And others are saying, I think all of you combined are making great radio, but it has to stop there. And more people are texting and calling in. We'll take those calls and text in a few seconds. Firstly, we're going to be going to London Live in a minute. First, we're going to talk to Professor Patrick Holden, Associate Professor of International Relations at the University of Plymouth, about last night's Brexit vote and the strong likelihood of an election. Patrick, good morning.
Morning, Damien.
Thank you for joining us this morning. Patrick, what did you think of what's been happening, the latest in terms of the defeat for Boris Johnson, which was to be expected, the margin of that defeat, and what Boris is now planning to do?
Many people thought Boris wanted an election or to be forced into one all along anyway. However, I don't think he anticipated this kind of defeat and opposition. What's really at the heart of this is Boris did this thing proroguing Parliament, which was really overreaching, I think, and he's encouraged even quite moderate people in his own party to vote against him, and finally 21 of them rebelled. And also the other key factor is that the anti-no deal elements in Parliament finally come together, and they're implementing this bill. So they're going to today. They won the motion last night, and today they're going to implement a bill that's really very strong, and it's law, and it forces Boris to go and ask the EU for an extension and basically take whatever the EU offers him. And he's going to try and ask for an election, but he needs a 2/3 majority to get that. And even though before Labour always said they wanted an election, they're going to wait for a while because A, they don't trust him about the date of it, and B, they just want to make him sort this out first and then later have an election.
Yeah, there's so many aspects to this in terms of those 21 Tories, the rebels who've lost the whip, and that number, as you say, and grandsons of Winston Churchill and different people. But does this look like Boris effectively is saying, I am a strong man, I can kick these guys out of the party, and when he goes to the people, when an election does happen, he's able to use this, I am the strong person to lead this country through this crisis?
Yeah, that was the idea. However, I think it's come slightly off the rails in that I'm not sure he imagined so many people, and they're very senior people, like Churchill's grandson, ex-chancellors like Hammond and Clark and that, and the remainder of his party is still not exactly crazy about it either. And also, he wanted to go, I think, for this election before 31st of October. If he's made go over to Brussels and do the Theresa May thing of ask for an extension, that's going to take a lot of shine off him for the pro-Brexit vote he's looking for. So that's why I think they're being quite clever in saying we're passing this law making you get an extension and not an immediate election. But yeah, that was a strategy, but I don't think it's looking good. Then again, you always have to step back, though, and his performance in Parliament, doesn't look good. What this means for public opinion isn't so clear. People didn't support suspending Parliament. Lots of people won't like this law today that forces an extension either. So how it will play out in votes, it's hard to say. My own bet is that it won't be a decisive election and that nothing will really be solved. Let's say it will be more close to like a hung parliament or coalition government again.
Yeah, well, again, that depends on if he can pull together the Leave voters, those that have defected to the Brexit party and the Farage. As I've said on this programme a number of times, I think the real battle is between Boris and Nigel as opposed to Boris and Corbyn if that election does take place. Boris wants to get out there, he wants to get to the people because he doesn't have a majority within the Parliament now. And without going into too much details about what can happen today, as you say, he'll need a 2/3 majority to secure a general election under what's called a Fixed Term Parliaments Act. The alternative is that he goes for a no confidence vote, and that will be a simple majority. But he won't want to be going to the people on the basis of a no confidence vote, which he's asking his own party to support a no confidence vote.
Yeah, that is the other option. I think they might end up doing that. They might figure maybe just early next week, they might figure it's better than the humiliation of
Yes.
going to Brussels on their instructions from Parliament. But it is, strange times, but for government to vote. But I think I wouldn't put it past them. I think he might do that. He'll try first for the regular way of 2/3. But then, even so, will he win that? It's not clear because he doesn't have any kind of majority. So he mightn't even get a simple majority. He's down to it's under 300 now. Him and the DUP now that he's chucked the 21 rebels out yesterday.
Yeah, Nicholas Soames, and as you say, and Hammond and the others, and it's fascinating to watch it in some respects, and yet it's really real. So, for example, the papers this morning, and Grove was talking about it yesterday, about the idea of 2/3 of medicines that come to Ireland pass through UK ports and UK airports, and if this no deal happens, you could have a shortage of medicines in Ireland. Again, the veiled threats that unless the Irish do something about this, you are going to be in difficulty, say the British.
Yeah, a lot of this hardline position has been aimed at Ireland, really. They know that countries like Germany and France aren't that terrified by a no deal, let alone countries like Poland or Austria, countries from Ireland. They know it's Ireland that would really be in trouble as well. So a lot of it's been aimed at Ireland. But I don't think it's going to work from Ireland's point of view as long as this law is passed tomorrow and if Boris doesn't get his early election, I think no deal is saved. Or no, if the bill is passed today and later in the House of Lords, I think no deal will be off the table. But that's not you can't count on it yet. But it's looking better, I think, than 2 days ago.
Patrick Holden, thanks very much, and mind yourself.
Thanks, Damien. Take care.
And with the very latest is Nick Gowan joining us directly from London. Good morning, Nick.
Good morning.
Columnist with The Observer. And what is the latest this morning, Nick?
Well, we now have a situation, I was going to say absurd, but the absurd is normal here in London, where Boris Johnson has withdrawn the whip from 20-odd Conservative MPs who voted against him. So he now has no majority at all. And can't govern. I mean, hasn't been able to govern at all anyway, really. There's been a lot of bombast hiding that.
And just on that, Nick, 8 former cabinet ministers among these 21 rebels. I was watching Nick Soames last night on Newsnight. We're talking about Philip Hammond. This is unreal, is it? But it is real. It's happening. Yeah.
Well, I mean, these things matter in England. Winston Churchill's grandson has been thrown out of the Conservative Party.
Yes. For
following his conscience and doing what he believes is in the best interest of his country. It is unreal. Johnson wants an election, but he can't have an election unless 2/3 of the House of Commons supports it. And the problem he's got is he's simply not believed. Without being too vulgar about this, I mean, his whole record as a journalist is not one you would stake your life on trusting. He said his operatives, who are rather thuggish, deny press leaks, and then they absolutely deny them in terms that are so strong. You know, you think, my goodness, you know, the Prime Minister's office wouldn't be saying this unless they were absolutely right. Then, of course, the leaks turn out to be true. The opposition thinks that if they were to grant an election, Johnson would just wangle the system, the law, to get us out of the EU without a deal before the election actually happens. So Labour is saying, okay, first of all, we rule out no deal. Until you do that, no election, no nothing, quite sensibly in my view.
Is there a possibility, if he doesn't get this 2/3 majority under the clause within the Fixed Parliament Act, that he may go for a no-confidence vote, and that will allow him, obviously it's only a simple majority, but he'll be asking his members, those that are still left within the party, to vote no confidence in his leadership and go to the people on that basis?
It's possible, but I think it's very hard for him to get an election through the House of Commons without the support of the Labour Party.
Yes.
It's going to be very, very difficult for him. So, government in Britain has been paralysed essentially since the referendum anyway. I mean, what Brexit has done is why it's, in my view, such a disaster for Britain, is it stopped us talking about dealing with the real problems facing the country. Everything has been consumed by it. But now Brexit is sort of eaten itself. Nothing can be done about it until this logjam is broken up.
And Nicola Soames said last night, something we've been saying on this programme quite regularly, is that the main battle out on the streets will be between Boris and Nigel. And if he can get those levers to pull together and to come within the Tory party, Boris will put that motion out there that he is the strong man in difficult times. Corbyn is a bluffer, and vote for me, Boris. He'll bring you through these rough waters. Is that his game?
Yeah, and it might work. In my view, it is very, very sad that the opposition in Britain is led by such an inadequate figure as Jeremy Corbyn. It may work. That said, he's banking an awful lot on Labour constituencies in the north of London turning Tory. He's lost Scotland. Let's start off with Scotland. He's lost Scotland. The Tories did well in Scotland last time. Ruth Davidson's gone. That's gone. The DUP, his allies, may lose at least one seat in Northern Ireland because, as I'm sure you and your listeners know very well, we've had the absurd position where Northern Ireland votes to remain in the EU. Then Sinn Féin won't take its seats in Westminster, so that they don't represent them, and the DUP is for the hardest of hard Brexit. Northern Ireland politics may be rearranging itself a little, so seats going there. He's going to lose to the Liberal Democrats. I don't know how to describe it in Irish terms, but the British equivalents of Cork, prosperous, open towns who just are looking appalled at what's happening. So first of all, he's got to get Farage on board, and second, he's got to win a lot of Labour seats. It's far from clear. No one knows anything about it. It's far from clear that he will. It's even far from clear that Farage will. Farage is a very vain and ambitious man. He's friends with Donald Trump. He's friends with Salvini. He moves. He moves into the houses, goes to the drinks parties of the leaders of the world's populist right. It's far from clear to me that he'll accept being patted on the head by Boris Johnson and told, well, you just help me out and let me get on with it. I think he wants to be in Westminster, which he's failed repeatedly to get into. He wants to be a player. Farage will only support a Tory government unless it says in terms really clearly, we want no deal. And then there'll be an electoral prize for Boris Johnson to pay for that.
Nick Cohen, as ever, thank you for joining us this morning.
My pleasure.
Thanks very much, Nick. We will watch that with interest. Texts and comments still coming in. Councillor Conor McGuinness has been on again. He said he wrote to all the councillors, says Conor McGuinness. That's Tom Murphy. He didn't. I respond to members of the public. He didn't contact me. Please point out that Tom Murphy categorically did not write to me. And also Breda Brennan, Metropolitan Mayor, says that Tom must have forgotten to email me, she says. Tom Murphy's dead right to highlight Waterford. He isn't putting negativity out there, but saying it as he is. You can't pretend it's not happening when it is. At least it's coming on the radio to say it is. Elaine is crazy to believe not talking about it makes people believe it's not happening. And as you heard Elaine say, she understood what Tom was saying and she agreed with his points, but she said the positive message has to get out there. Dara has texted to say, I love this county. We need an action group. Actions, actions, actions. Damon was at the night for the Amazon last night. Absolutely brilliant. Well done to Susan O'Neill and to everyone involved. Damien says, Maria, I don't like when people say the best and brightest leave Waterford. My 5 children graduated from WIT and are all working in the environs. There's no difference to when my husband and myself stayed in Waterford through 2 recessions. I agree with everything else Tom has said. This is a great discussion and let's continue it.
Daysha Today with Damien Tiernan on WLR.
With thanks to mulliganspharmacy.com. Life's a beach with Mulligan's Pharmacies. Open late on the Dunmore Road and in Dromore.
Now the texts and comments are flying in about this. I'm going to have Niall Mulligan on the line in a second. Firstly, Martin Cullen and Fianna Fáil refused to rescue Waterford Crystal, says Mary. We know there's major issues that happened at the time about how they couldn't intervene, and they have defended their record on the past with that. Boris Johnson can't force an election unless he has the backing of the House. He needs to stop acting like a spoiled child and concentrate on actually getting in with negotiating with the EU. Tom Murphy is right. We've been asset stripped for years, and the biggest test for this government's commitment for Waterford, if they fail to support the North Quays development, that'll bring millions to the exchequer. Damien, the mind of a child. My 10-year-old granddaughter asked yesterday, was Boris a comedian? That's very, very good. I wonder, does Boris Johnson, did he ever have head lice? Niall Mulligan, how are you?
How are we doing, Damien?
Did you ever have head lice yourself, Niall?
Yeah, I was a child. I'd say everyone has. Unfortunately so, and now I'd say half your audience are starting itching their scalp as we speak.
It's the one thing, if you mention head lice, people just go, like I see Wayne is walking past there, so we're not allowed to talk about spiders. We've done our spiders, and now moving on to head lice. But like, you mention head lice, and people go, oh, don't they?
Yeah, it's a very common, let's say, infestation. It's worldwide. It's nothing about dirty hair, which everyone says it is. It's actually, lice only like clean hair. So that is a misnomer that starts with it. They don't like long or short hair. Doesn't bother them, because what they want is they feed off the scalp. They can't fly, they can't jump, they just move from contact to contact. So it's really one of those things. It just will come about, and it's usually in your junior school years you'd see it, because the kids are all just running and banging in close contact, where you don't see it as we get older, just purely because people give a bit more space between each other.
I know people now are thinking, the reason we're talking about this is that the schools are back this week, and you do have this kind of parents' worst nightmare that the children are going to come home with head lice. What happens when you get that text on the WhatsApp group, or you get the email from the school saying, there has been an infestation of head lice recorded in your classroom. Can you please check your child's head?
But the first thing I'd say is that it actually goes around all year round. So it's becoming more. We have spikes in it because people are back at school, and that's just a congregation of children in a smaller area. But we'll see it all year round. The key to it is actually just always checking the child's hair, not just waiting for the text message to come back in. So you're always trying to catch it earlier rather than waiting till someone says, "Oh, do they have it?" If you're looking, I will start at the start. I go with prevention if we can. So when we're going back to school, there's a couple of different treatments. Lyclear do one, Hedron do one. People will often use, tea tree, and Kel can do a great product called, which is a leave-in conditioner, which is just basically when the child is hair is tied up, or where the boys and the short hairs are going out the door, you spray the head, and that's it. You're done, gone, out the door. That's your preventative. And then when you get it, you're dealing with looking at a treatment. Now, the newer treatments that are out in the market are very good because, firstly, they're not insecticidal. They're using different technology, so you can't even build up resistance like the older ones did, the Durbax and the other ones, which used to stink to high heaven. The newer ones now work on basically trying to kill the lice by dehydration or suffocation.
And they did, I know, and just on the smell, those previous ones, they did stink to high heaven, didn't they? I remember. God.
It was a terrible stigma nearly, because everyone knew that you were being dosed, but then it just built it's basically an insecticidal. It was the same thing you'd like for dipping sheep in and getting rid of lice, you know what I mean? It was that kind of an idea. But nowadays, we've come to, and the lice used to build up resistance to it. So if you used one and someone else used a different one, you don't know that was causing a problem. So nowadays, the likes of Hedron, Lightclear, and a few others, they will actually suffocate the lice so that the lice doesn't, the cycle breaks. Now the problem here is you have to still do this a week later, and even a week later, because your eggs take about, I hate to go to like 8 to 9 days basically before they hatch. Your lice then, from they're small, they then, before they become a full lice, the louse, they're another 8 days, and then they have a 30-day life. So, that's a 6-week period realistically, from egg to adult to dying. So you do it. If you get an infestation, you do it again. Look, keep checking every week, every day, but you're combing out all the actual eggs, and they're the hard things to get off because they're stuck quite close to the scalp there.
I know people listening to this, I'm even squirming myself. This idea of something living in your head, on your scalp, and laying eggs, and these little creatures. Yeah.
I know, it makes everyone itch, and you can't help it, but it's just a common thing. They're nothing. They're not invasive. They don't carry disease. Do you know what I mean? They're just something that's there.
They're grand little chaps. Is that what you're saying? They're grand.
They're grand. The only reason they're annoying you, and this is because when they're biting or whatever, or hanging on to you, they just cause irritation in the scalp. That's the only thing. You could live with them all you like, but they're not nice. But the thing that I'd like to let people know is the most important thing here is there are different treatments to use. There are different preventative treatments, but none of them work one dose and I'm gone. I don't have to worry about them anymore. I mean, just when your kids are in junior school, you got to be checking their hair all the time. And there's a method for even checking hair, not just, they basically do it by dividing the scalp into a quarter and just checking from inside to outside, looking near the hair follicles. You'll find it on even a few of the, I think Lightclear do a great website just informing patients of I know they'll say their products, but they also just showing you general tips of how to use their products, because they're often not used correctly. Like some of the treatments you'll use for 5 minutes or 10 minutes, some are left on for 8 hours and, rinsed out later, so it is important to read through these things.
It is. Niall, I know you have treatments in Mulligan's Pharmacy, and you're with Mulligan's Pharmacy, and thanks for coming on. That's not the reason we had you on, it's because it's just one of those public information things that's so important.
But I just to tell people one thing, it's not short or long hairs. The lice like clean hair, so it's nothing to do with people having dirty hair. I always believe in just prevention if you can, and so one of the ones I like is just like a tea tree oil is a great preventer. Just spraying the hair every day and just checking. That's it, Damien.
Niall Mulligan, thanks for joining us.
No worries.
I know a lot of people won't want to hear you again if we're back on next week talking about how to get rid of the next infestation. Niall, thanks very much. A pleasure as ever. Niall Mulligan there. Damien, Nick Cohen is seriously underestimating the power and popularity of Jeremy Corbyn. If Johnson thinks he can win Labour voters by bluffing and bull, he's even a greater clown that he likes to portray. We are back with a lot more of your texts and comments. Keep them coming.
Daysha Today with Damien Tiernan on WLR.
With thanks to mulliganspharmacy.com. Life's a beach with Mulligan's Pharmacies. Open late on the Dunmore Road and Intramore.
Now, welcome back. A lot of people very animated about the discussion we had between Tom Murphy and Elaine Fennelly earlier, and all that brings up in terms of the positive message, the negative message, the real message that needs to get out there. Sinn Féin TD David Cullinan is a little bit irate, and he is going to be coming on the programme in the next hour to rebuff and rebuke some of what has been said. If you want to have your message read out, please text and WhatsApp us on 083 3333 975, or you can call Audrey on 051 846 123. On the head lice issue, Helen says her child picked up head lice from a child he was sitting beside last year. She spent a fortune and serious effort sorting it out, only for her child to contract them again 2 weeks later. She says you can do all the right things as a parent, but if other parents don't deal with the lice, it's pointless. Another texter, comb, comb, comb. Please emphasise the fact you have to comb the roots to the tips for 10 days on wet hair every single night. That is from Elaine. That's the main message that Elaine has. You have to comb, comb, comb. Another texter, Joe, has texted in. Apparently there are letters from school saying there's a chicken pox outbreak. What are the symptoms? We'll come back to you on that, Joe, because I had chicken pox myself. Most people did, but in terms of the symptoms, I'm not 100% sure at present. I had a text there last night from a woman from the Portlaw area. This is the topic that we covered yesterday. Damien, regarding that under-15 match between Portlaw and De La Salle last week, as a parent of a player, and I was present that night, I've been agonising about sending this text, she said. The disgraceful behaviour and the racial abuse of one of the most talented, unassuming, skillful and so well-mannered child that's ever played. It was horrible. This guy that suffered the abuse was very manly and a good all-round child. I know there are two sides to every story, but there's no excuse for that kind of behaviour. The woman should have been asked or told to leave. There is no room on underage GA games for that. It left me with an awful feeling for days afterwards. The ref did his best, and yes, there was shite spoken on Monday night as well when the replay was played. And basically they're saying that boys, this lady says, boys at that age do say awful things to each other to rile each other up. As parents, we spend most of our lives running around our children, giving out about refs and decisions. It's only natural. But this can go too far. And that seems to be the general message. It's very hard, as we said yesterday, the woman involved in the alleged racist abuse. She wasn't a member of the Portlaw GA club, and I don't know if any action can be taken from that perspective, but we are following it up in terms of what the county board, if they have received any indication in the referee's report about this. We are going to be talking about all the issues that have been raised already this morning. Damien, for 100th time, Northern Ireland didn't vote to remain in the EU. The UK as an entity voted to leave. Can you please point this out to your guests? Councillor Joe Kelly has also texted to say, Damien, I haven't seen any email from Tom either. Councillor Pat Fitzgerald, all the 27 EU that make up the EU, the nations, are now just vassal states that are really run by EU institutions. National governments no longer have any meaningful power. Ireland, for decades, will now be decided in a row. Our future will be decided in a row between Britain and the EU. So much for national democracy. I got a text in from Matt Shanahan regarding matters that he has raised and sentenced to talked about the Carroll's Cross Junction, and he's written to different people about this, and a lot of councillors have. And we had Emmett Cullinan on yesterday. We have a campaign going in this programme to try and get the Carroll's Cross Junction some remedial action taken immediately, and also some longer term action. And joined on the line now, Gabriel Hines, he's Senior Roads Engineer with Waterford City and County Council. Gabriel, good morning.
Good morning, Damien.
Thank you very much for joining us. You are Acting Director of Services at Waterford Council and also Senior Engineer with responsibility for roads. I'd say it's a tough enough job with so much happening around the city and county and roads and stuff like that, is it? You're probably a lot of demands coming at you left, right and centre.
There is. Look, we have a considerable portfolio, be the national primary network and the local network, and then you have the city and your main towns. So we probably over 3,500 kilometres of road network to maintain and look after. So it is busy, and plenty of representations and plenty, I suppose, discussions and so on and so forth coming to and fro from our members as well.
Yeah, and
so busy times, but enjoyable.
Yeah, and you have to deal with if somebody's ringing in and councillors are making representations for potholes, or if there's roads that need remedial works and all that, and road works as well. So on the specific thing that we've been talking about on the programme regarding Carroll's Cross on the N25, the main Waterford-Cork road, what is the position regarding Carroll's Cross? Who has responsibility for Carroll's Cross, Gabriel? Can you give us that information, please?
Yeah. Just to be clear about that, Waterford City and County Council are the statutory authority for all roads. Okay. However, in relation to the National Primary Road, which is the N25 at Carroll's Cross, and the National Secondary Roads, I suppose the TII are the fund. They provide the funding, and they give us approval for all works, and they set the design standards.
And just before you go on there, just before you go on, well, just in case our listeners didn't hear it yesterday, TII stands for Transport Infrastructure Ireland, and this is the body that was set up after the National Roads Authority. So the National Roads Authority had responsibility for national roads. TII was then set up subsequent to that, and they have responsibility, as you say, for the funding aspect of these things.
Funding and approval of all works on it. So we would prepare reports. We'd send them to TII, they would review them, come back to us, and they would prioritise them, provide the funding available. And those reports and designs that we do would be in accordance with the TII standards, which would be the best practices that are out there, I suppose, from a national point of view and from an international point of view as well.
OK. What do you think of Carroll's Cross Junction?
Look, I suppose... the N25, I suppose, from the Kilmeaden Road roundabout, I suppose all the way to Middleton in County Cork, it has high volumes of traffic. It's probably, in our section, we're probably in the region of 14,000 annual average daily traffic. We have a lot of junctions off it. And obviously where you have a lot of junctions, you have right turning movements, there's a high risk of collisions if there's a driver error. Ideally, Damien, and in the long term, what really should happen from Waterford to Cork is that we should have a dual carriageway or a motorway.
Okay.
And that would be the long term. That's the long term solution in order to deal with the increasing traffic volumes. And all the junctions, entrances that are along that road.
Okay.
That's a long-term solution.
So your most recent figures would indicate that there's 14,000 vehicles passing Carroll's Cross every day. Is that right?
Something in the region of 13,000 to 14,000, Damien. We're going to do another assessment of that, but it's in that category.
Okay. Have you done up to now some kind of a assessment, safety or otherwise, of what should be done at Carroll's Cross, and have you presented that to the TII?
I suppose what happens, Damien, in relation to all our junctions on the National Primary Network, traffic accidents are recorded, they're monitored. You look at the pattern. I suppose in Carroll's Cross, in the last 12 months, there were 3 serious accidents and 1 fatality. Up to that, from around 2012 to mid-2018, while there were accidents there, the accidents there were, I suppose, they were material damage and non-serious injury. So up to, I suppose, maybe 12 months ago, we would have had discussions with the TII in relation to it. And I suppose it wasn't at that stage deemed as a high-risk location, probably only in the last 12 months since the last 3 serious accidents that have occurred. I suppose that it has been upgraded now to a high collision location, I suppose.
Okay, so you've had you've had discussions with the TII in the last few years about it.
We had.
It wasn't deemed an urgent matter as such because the seriousness of the accidents hadn't reached a certain level, which is a horrible way of putting it in a way. Do you know where I'm coming from, Gabriel? I
do. I understand what you're saying, but in relation to all junctions on the network, they're all monitored. They're all evaluated. In relation to Carroll's Cross, it would have been evaluated. The what's at Carroll's Cross at the moment is in accordance with design standards. The skid resistance at the junction would have been improved over the years. the signing at the junctions in relation to the lining would have been improved during that period of time. So that's what you would have been doing in relation to that junction.
Okay. And what about two specific things? We had Emmett Cullinan on yesterday. I know you heard some of what he had to say. He was talking about a 100-metre slip road. I suppose if you're coming from Waterford at the Carroll's Cross Junction, you want to turn left down to Kill. Can you put in, very simply, 100, 200 metres of a verge to allow cars to slow down, to start indicating turning left, that will not slow down the traffic behind?
Can I just get to that answer in a minute? But just
sure.
prior to that, what we need to do in relation to the junction now, Damien, is we need to do a full evaluation of it, I suppose, and we need to look at the accident history, what was causing, what contributed to the recent accidents. We need to look at the traffic volumes. We need to look at the turning movements. We need to look at the traffic speeds. We need to look at the existing geometry. And I suppose we need to do a complete assessment of the junction. Look at all different engineering solutions, like from grade separation to rounds to traffic calming to maybe static reduction speed. We need to look at all those, and then from those evaluate them and see which ones are best suited for that location.
Okay, and with that, just before you go on to the slip road thing, with that, do you not think, like, I know it's hard to take off your council hat as such, but your engineering hat, could you even do something next week? Put up a few signs and say, slow down, lads. Put up one of those speed counters. Could you do something, like, from a lay person's point of view, Gabriel? I travel that road, you travel that road. It's not a nice junction, to say the least, and it is a dangerous junction in the eyes of an awful lot of people, and we hear about near misses, which are not recorded as accidents. So do you think there's something can be done in the short term?
Will I go back? I just go back to the deceleration lane issue that you raised.
Okay.
And I suppose what I really want to say in relation to that is, I suppose, what has been found out in relation to deceleration lanes over the years is that while they help the car that's turning left off the main road, it has been found from research and I suppose analysis of accidents that it can contribute to a far more serious accident from the guy who's leaving the minor road and turning right. Now, just let me explain that. What happens is when the vehicle is indicating to go left, the vehicle on the minor road then that wants to turn right sees the approaching vehicle turning left, and what has happened, he has pulled out, and at the same time a car has been overtaking that vehicle that has been turning left on the right-hand side, and as a result in a serious collision to the side of the car that was pulling out. So from a standard point of view, deceleration lanes are no longer an acceptable standard for national primary roads, as they give a higher risk in a more serious accident. And that's the reason why a deceleration lane would not be appropriate for the turn off to Kill.
Okay.
And I don't want, and Damien, what I don't want to be doing here is debating solutions over the radio.
I understand.
There's an appropriate way of dealing with this. Is a complete evaluation of the junction. Look at all the engineering measures.
Yes.
Look at all the history and come up with a sensible proposal that needs to be submitted to TII for funding and approval. And that's the procedure, and that's the national procedure across the country.
Two final questions. Can there be something done in the short term, in the next few weeks, to alert people that this is a dangerous junction? You have said earlier that it is a dangerous junction.
What I said was, given that, I suppose, the high-risk movements on the national primary network are the right turn lanes. In particular, the Carroll's Cross, the study of the recent serious accidents have resulted in people turning right turning from the main line onto the Portlaw junction, or turning right from the Portlaw junction onto the national primary.
Yeah.
So the right turn movements are the issue. Now, you obviously, in relation to doing something in the shorter term, I suppose in consultation with the Gardaí, in consultation with the RSA, I think more enforcement in that particular area certainly is warranted. In relation to just putting up a driver feedback sign, research has shown, Damien, without other engineering measures, which means narrowing of the carriageway, they're not very effective, and they lose their effectiveness in a very short period of time. So driver feedback signs giving the person speed in isolation without other engineering measures isn't an effective solution there. So in the shorter term, what I'm saying is that probably more enforcement by the authorities, and also what I would be saying is that drivers need to slow down. They need to be fully concentrating on what they're doing and not to be distracted by mobile phones or other things going on in the car. That's very, very important. And they need to give reasonable distance to the vehicle in front of them.
How long will this review take, Gabriel?
I mean, obviously we have to do traffic count. We have
6 months at least.
No. I would be hopeful that we would have something done within 3 months with the TII. That would be our objective. We'll be prioritising it, and we'll be getting moving as fast as we can. Now, what I will say, Damien, like Carroll's Cross, if you could get rid of the right turn movements at Carroll's Cross, right? How can that be achieved? That can be achieved, I suppose, by a great separated junction. So you'd have a flyover or an underpass. That would be the ideal solution. I'm not sure if the geometry of the existing road network there would allow us to do that, and the cost of it as well might be excessive. But apart from that, and that has worked well further on. It's working at Kilmac Thomas Junction as well. But that would be the ideal solution.
What about
we need to look at all these, evaluate all these, and make a reasonable determination based on the facts, which is the previous accidents, the speeds, the traffic volumes, and the geometry that's there.
Briefly, what about a roundabout?
That is something we will consider, but a roundabout in a rural location, Damien, gives rise to other difficulties. It gives rise to traffic accidents as well, because people are coming onto the approach, and it's unexpected in a rural area, and roundabouts.
There's a roundabout only a couple of miles up the road. There's no problems there.
Well, what difference there, Damien, is that's coming off a motorway onto a single carriageway.
Yes.
So there's a slight difference there. And the other point I'll make is, I suppose from a national point of view, we can put roundabouts on all the national network where you have junctions. And I think
nobody's suggesting that, but on this junction, it may be a solution, as you say. It might be.
Yeah, it might be. I think probably, and without preempting the report, probably my view on it is we need to reduce speeds there by introducing engineering measures there, right? Which will, I suppose, when a driver is approaching it, he'll realise he's coming into a more constricted area, and he'll automatically reduce his speed. So probably narrowing the carriageway might be something we should be looking at there. Build out some form of gateways as well is something that I think is maybe a possible solution. But look, we're going to evaluate all engineering solutions and come up with what's reasonable and best suited to the location. And
God forbid that there isn't another major or serious accident between now and the time that some works are done. Yeah,
we'd be hoping that wouldn't be the case. We certainly will be, from a driver's point of view, I think it's very important that drivers be aware of the statutory road markings on the road, and they reduce their speed.
Gabriel Hines, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Okay, thank you, Damien.
Gabriel, thanks very much. And some texts and comments coming in. If drivers use their indicators in plenty of time, this would save a lot of accidents, not alone at Carroll's Cross, but other junctions as well. That's from Jimmy. Damien, regarding Carroll's Cross, it's not the road that's causing the accidents, but the drivers. They're in too much of a hurry. They need to slow down. Damien, could they not copy what's been done in Lemmy Bryan as a temporary measure? Damien, was a complete assessment not done already at Carroll's Cross? Damien, why is there no left turn filter lane in both directions? Hello, Damien. Good morning. Love the show. I don't understand why they don't just paint the median at Carroll's Cross. It would save so many problems. That's from Jennifer. Brexit would be over and done with if it wasn't for the DUP continuously voting against it, says Tony. Damien, Pascal O'Donoghue is in town tomorrow. Does that mean he has the chequebook for the North Wharf? I don't know. We'll ask him tomorrow. Head lice. Dilute tea tree oil and put a dab behind the child's ears and around their hairline. I hate head lice. If you do hate head lice, then get the tea tree oil. A man has called from the Ballygunner area to say that Air customers have had no connection to broadband for the past 24 hours. They're getting no joy from Air despite numerous calls. Anyone else having problems from Ballygunner? This man is wondering. Damien, some of the stuff that Gabriel is saying I don't agree with. He needs a full evaluation of the history of accidents before anything that can be done. All he has to do is to talk to local people. We are going to continue our campaign on this because it's a very, very important issue. It's a cross-party political issue and it's a non-political issue in that it's about health and safety. And we're going to be looking at working with local residents in terms of making sure that campaign becomes more visible as early as next week and try and force and help the likes of Gabriel and others to formulate some kind of a distinctive policy that will combine their engineering things with how people feel about the junction itself. Stay with us. We have David Cullinan, who is more than a little irate.
Deisha Today with Damien Tiernan on WLR.
With thanks to Mulligan's. Did you know you can collect your Blue Club points online? See mulliganspharmacy.com.
Now, welcome back to the programme. Damien, people don't even use their indicators at roundabouts. It's very frustrating. Damien, another roundabout on the N25 is the turn for Youghal, and that is from Paul. You're 100% right on Paul. Damien, are some of these engineers living on the moon? It's simple. Let them drive the road and observe in around half an hour. People should see from themselves and then draw up a plan. But as you said, Gabriel said he will be involved in drawing up a plan and will get involved in that. A caller said he was turning at the Port Law junction last night and someone overtook, not realising that there's 3 lanes, and then had nowhere to go. The caller spotted it in time, gave him room, but said it needs to be signposted clearly before coming to this and similar junctions. David Cullinan, it's an awful junction, that Carroll's Cross.
It is indeed, yes. I heard the interview with Mary Butler, I think it was Monday morning.
Your friend Mary?
Well, we're colleagues, certainly. I wouldn't have a bad word to say about any of my colleagues, Damien. It's not my style. But yes, it is a very dangerous bend. I know that there's moves to get Minister Shane Ross down to Waterford to have a look at that stretch of road. I've spoke to myself several times about that road and a number of other roads. So I think if he does come down, and he needs to come down, action will need to follow, because it's a very dangerous bend, and we can't have those level of fatalities that I think can be dealt with. I actually think that reducing the speed limit on that stretch is something that could be done. I've spoken to some of our councillors on that as well, to look at that. That's a council decision. They can make that very quickly. And there's the possibility of the traffic calming measures. Like, we have to look at all of the options. And I support any changes that would slow the traffic down for that stretch.
The reason you're here is that you're angry, you're annoyed at what you heard earlier. You heard Tom Murphy talking about Sinn Féin. Tom might be on the line in a minute, but let's hear what Tom had to say. This was about Tom Murphy talking about Sinn Féin and the representation.
I prefer not to go there, because I find it very hard to speak about any political organisation that refused to condemn the murder of a Garda sergeant in the doing of his daily work.
Response, please.
First of all, Damien, I'm not annoyed at all, far from it. But I felt that it was important to respond to some of the issues that Tom raised.
Well, let's deal with that.
Let's deal with that issue. I will deal with that. But
I'm conducting this interview now, David. Yeah. So if you want to, as I said to Paddy Coffey before, get your own radio station, that's fine, okay? You've asked to come on here. We've brought you on, okay? So I'll ask the questions, you answer the questions. If you don't like it, you can leave. What have you got to say to that response that you haven't condemned the killing of a guard Sinn Féin haven't come.
Well, first of all, Damien, just to respond to what you just said there, I've been a public representative for 17 years. I've never, ever refused to come onto this programme, and I've always treated presenters with respect. And I would like the same respect from yourself. I have no problem in answering questions, and I will answer questions. I resent the tone of your response in terms of that I'm somehow evading questions. I was setting out the context. You put it to me that I was angry. I'm responding and saying I'm not angry.
So you're not angry?
My entitlement.
You're
no,
not angry?
I'll deal with the question. I don't know which killing specifically Tom is talking about. I have condemned
killing of Garda Jerry McCabe,
and I have condemned that time and time again. I don't believe that was in any way justified. I think it was callous. I think it was cold. I think it was wrong. I don't think it did anything to advance the Republican struggle. And I have condemned it time and again, over and over, any time I was asked. And in fact, can I just make this point? Because he mentioned a couple of things. And one of them was the potential moving of the Garda headquarters. I broke that story. You were on holidays at the time. I was on with Maria McCann.
Right.
I broke that story. Nobody would have known about that until I raised it first. How did I raise it? I met with the Chief Superintendent in Waterford. Now, if the Chief Superintendent in Waterford can sit down and talk to me on these issues, why can Tom Murphy not do it? So that's the point. Now, this isn't about Tom Murphy and it isn't about me. I happen to agree with Tom on a lot of the issues that he raised. He says he wrote to TDs and he wrote to councillors. He never wrote to me.
He never wrote to you.
And can I just make a point about, I know it's you're right, it is your show. Can I make this point? I said it off here. I had one meeting with Tom Murphy in my lifetime, or one interaction, and that was before the last general election. And it was hustings that was organised by the Chamber of Commerce, and I can see a representative of the Chamber of Commerce outside in the studio here, and he organised the event. So it was hustings for all of the candidates, and it was an opportunity to discuss all of the issues relevant to Waterford. Tom Murphy stood up and used his 1 minute contribution to attack me and attack Sinn Féin, and then left. Never once raised anything about Waterford. And I have no problem, and I'd sit down today, tomorrow or next week with Tom or anybody else. But what I won't have is people saying I'm not doing my job, because see, all these issues, I have been relentless in pursuing these issues for the people of Waterford City and County, and will continue to do so.
OK, put on your headphones there for a second. Tom Murphy, hello Tom.
But what I won't have is people saying I'm not doing my job.
Hello Tom, are you on the line there?
I have been relentless in pursuing these issues.
Hello Tom.
Of Waterford City and County, and will continue to do so. Okay, put on your headphones there for a second.
Hello Tom, can you hear us, Tom?
Tom Murphy, hello Tom.
Tom, can you pick up the phone there, please?
Hello Tom, are you on the line there?
Yes, Damien.
Okay, just turn down the radio at the background there, Tom, for a second, please, if you don't mind.
No, Damien, I can't. I'm on the line here.
Yeah, turn off. Yeah, you're on the line because I have you on the programme there. Just turn off the...
I can hear you, Damien. I can hear you.
But I need you to turn off the radio in the background, please.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah. Okay, excellent. Tom, you heard what David Cullinan said there. Firstly, David Cullinan has repeatedly condemned the killing of Garda Jerry McCabe. That is what David Cullinan has just stated live on this programme. What have you got to say to that?
Well, I heard him condemning that, and I'm delighted to hear that from him. But I just have to ask him the question. After the release of those people that committed that foul murder, they were carried shoulder high into the next Sinn Féin Ardèche.
David Cullinan?
They weren't actually, but you see, here's the thing.
Sorry, David, they were.
No, they weren't. But Tom, you see, here's the thing. We can have a discussion about the conflict at any time, and I have no problem in having that. You came on specifically, and rightly so, to discuss very important issues affecting the people of Waterford, and your questions were directed at all TDs. And I have no problem, Tom, in sitting down with you or anybody else. I have a very constructive relationship with the Chamber of Commerce. I meet them on a regular basis. I met with the Chief Superintendent from Waterford a number of weeks ago about the Garda station. I was the only TD, in fact, who met him. And my point is, all of the things that happened in the conflict, there was many wrongs. We can go through each and every one of them, and you can ask me to condemn them or not. But the purpose of your interview this morning wasn't about Sinn Féin or about what happened 20 or 30 years ago. It was about Waterford and the future of Waterford.
And can I just interject for 1 second, gentlemen? We're going to come to that just now. I want to ask you another specific question, Tom. David mentioned, and rightly so, one interaction he had with you where you stood up at an event and
I remember it vividly.
funny
enough, if I can just come in, it was the day that Thomas Slab Murphy was sentenced to prison. And I was the victim of Sinn Féin intimidation. It was a long time ago now, but I'll never forget it. When 3 guys with blackberries came into my place of business the time of the hunger strikes and asked me what time I was closing down. And I phoned a friend of mine who is now retired, Cardis. He retired as a superintendent. And I said, what should I do? He said, look, I can't advise you, but we can't police your place. And I never forgot that. And the day I die, I'll never forget that. And I closed that day because I was afraid, but I'll never be afraid again.
Tom, do you think Sinn Féin have changed?
I respect David Cullinane insofar as if I were a Sinn Féin supporter, you couldn't have a better guy. I give him 11 out of 10 for that. But the ethos of Sinn Féin disturbs me. I mean, if Sinn Féin got up off their tail ends, they could have changed the Brexit thing a number of times over the last couple of months, but they wouldn't go to the UK. And I don't know the background to it, but I know if they went, the Sinn Féin elected councillor or MPs went to the Westminster, the MP, Mrs May, would be still in charge, and probably a Brexit deal would be done. But I regard Sinn Féin as nihilists. They're opposed to everything that I believe in. They are. I could actually. It's funny enough. I have it on my desk. I wrote to the Sunday Business Post, and the letter was published in January 2018, where a guy called Eamon O'Brien, who was he was writing on economic issues in the Sunday Business Post, and I said to I wrote to the Sunday Business Post and I said, somebody who is opposed to business, let me find this here.
Okay, and as you do that, I'm just going to read out a text. I'll bring you in now, David, absolutely. I'll bring you in. A comment there. That's exactly what's wrong with Waterford. Tom needs to stop putting people like David Cullinane down. Now, Tom has just said if you're a Sinn Féin supporter, he believes 11 out of 10, that's what you'd be getting. That you're one of the actual TDs that actually do a lot of work, says this texter. And yet you've heard what Tom Murphy has said, David.
Well, first of all...
Let me finish. I've just found
Okay, you found the document.
This guy, Eamon O'Brien, whom I don't know this guy over him, but he wrote on the Sunday Business Post in January 2018. And so one of the key economic policies on his website, Sinn Féin does not support private enterprise as being essential to the economy. That was on the Sinn Féin website in January 2018.
OK. Let David Cullinane respond to that because...
Well, there's an awful lot to respond to, but just on the very last point, of course we support private enterprise and our policies. If I was to sit down with Tom Murphy, I would imagine there's probably not a lot that Tom would disagree with because I'm not sure what policy specifically he talks about. My brother runs a garage next door to Tom Murphy and runs it very well. My other brother was in business for years and ran his own business. And I have met with the Chamber of Commerce many, many times supporting entrepreneurs. I believe in entrepreneurship. I think that people who go out, start up their own businesses, put a lot of their own time and energy into doing it. They're very creative people and they create jobs. We need them. So there has never been a position held by Sinn Féin that we're against private enterprise, ever.
No, sorry.
We do believe
on your website in January 2008, I'm stating this is a fact. Sinn Féin does not support private enterprise as being essential to the economy.
What you're doing is
in January 2018.
Guarantee that at no point was there ever any statement from anybody in Sinn Féin.
That was on your website. I didn't dream this.
Well, Tom, I can tell you what the Sinn Féin position is, and I'm the TD for Sinn Féin in Waterford. That's not our position. But you see, the reason why I'm on the programme this morning and the reason why I came from my office is this. The interview this morning, Tom, that when you came on was about TDs generally, and it was about Waterford. And now we've got into a debate about Sinn Féin. The reason why is because I want the people to be clear, Tom. I want the people to be clear that...
Just let David talk for 1 second.
I want the people to be clear that you never ever wrote to me, you never reached out to meet me, and the one time that we did have a contribution was that hustings at the before the election. And you have a particular problem with Sinn Féin, that's fine. But then you can say that I'm not responding to you or I'm not responding to letters I didn't get. And my point to you, Tom, is I have no problem meeting you. You see the issues you raised, I agree with almost all of them. The issue about the Garda station, I was the one that raised that. I was on Damien's programme a number of months ago where I said we could wake up one day and find out the headquarters of the university is in Kilkenny. I've relentlessly raised these issues. And despite the fact that we might have differences, that doesn't matter. It doesn't and it shouldn't stop us working together for the betterment of Waterford. So my point to you, Tom, is I'll meet you today, tomorrow, or at any point to discuss issues which are important to you, to me and the people who live in Waterford City and County.
As I said earlier, if I were a Sinn Féin supporter, you'd be my man, but I'm not, because the policy of Sinn Féin is anathema to everything that I believe in. And I refer again to that item on the website in January 2018, maybe it's been taken down. But Sinn Féin's policy does not support enterprise as being essential to the economy. This is private enterprise. And
you can't speak for, but you can't with respect, Tom, no more than I can speak for your business. You can't speak for Sinn Féin. I've already articulated to you that that's not Sinn Féin policy, never has and never will be.
Well, it was
and I believe...
It was on your website, David, in January 2018.
I'll communicate maybe to other people who are listening, because there's many business people who are listening who know that I work on their behalf on a daily basis. I am very, very pro enterprise, and I believe in entrepreneurship. Well, I don't need to be.
My impression, David.
I don't need to be patronised. I'm telling you that's my position and always has been my position. And had you stayed for that debate, by the way, which was a very constructive debate that took place before the last election, rather than getting up and making a 1 minute contribution attacking me and Sinn Féin and then leaving, you would have heard what I had to say about enterprise, you would have heard what I had to say about the university and lots of other issues. So my offer against you, Tom, despite your view of Sinn Féin, that's fine. I have my view about Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael, but I work with people of all parties. Meet with me.
I'm not involved in any political party.
I didn't say that. I said let's meet and let's discuss these issues.
Let Tom Murphy respond to that now, David.
What am I responding to, Danny? I'm sorry, it's hard to hear.
Would you meet, for example, and discuss these things?
I have no issue with David, good, bad, or indifferently. I mean, I haven't had a meeting with any the only meeting I had with a politician was about 18 months or 2 years ago. I was asked to go with the president at the time of the Chamber of Commerce to go to Dublin about the extension of the borough boundary. And that's the only meeting I had with a politician. I have nothing in common with politicians. I have no issue with them, good, bad or indifferently. I was very involved with Martin Cullen because I was very involved in trying to promote Waterford. And if I say so, he did a spectacular job for Waterford and this region. I just said to you earlier today, I went to Dublin yesterday. I left my home at 8 o'clock and I was back in town at 1:45 for my lunch. And that was 15 years ago. And, you know, as I said, Martin Cullen, and I will never, as I said, I said to you earlier, my family would be steeped in Fine Gael. I haven't voted for Fine Gael since 1984. But I have no issue, I have no interest in politics. My interest is in Waterford City and the next generation, my grandchildren and the children of the 50 people who work with me here.
And you see, I've no difficulty with any of that, Tom, because this isn't about me or you. And the reason why I'm on this programme now is because you were the one this morning that raised the issue of the TDs and whether or not we had good or bad, from your perspective, representation. I'm responding from that perspective to say that I feel that I'm doing my best.
We're sitting where I'm sitting at. The lady that was with us on that programme this morning, she said to me that, you know, she didn't, you know, wasn't probably... What's the word? She didn't want to get involved in the controversy. But I said, it just came to me the other day, I'd been at a meeting in town, and the line that John Healy, the late John Healy, said 50 years ago, nobody shouted stop. I'm not interested in going backwards. I'm more interested in going forwards. And what we can do together as people in this city to try to protect what we have left, like to try to ensure that the Garda station headquarters stays here, to try to ensure that the headquarters of WIT stays here, to try to ensure that there is no other state agencies lost to this city. That's all I'm trying to achieve.
Did you ever hear of that story that Tom Murphy said, David, about 3 men with black berets going into his garage?
And in fact, if that happened, if it was people who were associated at the time with the IRA, I actually don't believe that was the case. But if it was, I would condemn it as well.
You're telling me that I'm telling the truth?
I would condemn it as well. No, but people have often impersonated the IRA in the past as well for all sorts of different reasons.
Well, I was left under no uncertainty.
And Tom, if that happened, I would condemn that in the strongest possible terms. But here's the point. You
were left in no uncertain terms that they were Republicans. Is that what you're saying, Tom?
I was left in Northern Church and I was told that they were representing Sinn Féin, and I was asked what time was I closing. I phoned a friend of mine who was the Garda sergeant at the time, and he said to me they had been going around the town and they had been. I know it was a very volatile time, but I never forgot that. I never will, because they frightened the heart of me. But now, if it happened today, I tell them to go to hell. I call the guard.
But David Cullinane would say that Sinn Féin has changed immeasurably. Is that what you're saying, David?
Well, first of all, I'm
delighted to hear that. I have no personal issue. I'm sorry. I have no personal issue with David Cullinane. And as I said earlier, if I was a Sinn Féin supporter, he'd be my man, because he's a good guy for the people he represents.
OK, let David come back there,
please. And I give him 11 out of 10 for that.
Let David come back there.
Well, you see, again, I've been on programmes several times, Damien, where we've discussed the history of the conflict, and I'm a Republican. I believe in the politics of Sinn Féin, and I've no problem with that. Do I agree with everything the IRA did? Absolutely not, and I've condemned an awful lot of what they've done. But the bigger point here for the people listening to your programme is the issues that I actually agree with Tom on in relation to Waterford. So he's right about the Garda station and the potential of the headquarters being moved. I've raised that issue. I've written to the Garda Commissioner, I've written to the Minister for Justice, and I got a response from him this morning on that. I've raised relentlessly the issues of the university. I actually asked with Mary Butler and Paddy Coffey that we would have a meeting with the President. At this point he won't meet with us because he says it's a very sensitive time. But I have raised these issues again directly with the Minister with responsibility, that we don't see the headquarters going anywhere other than Waterford. But see, all these issues where we agree, let's meet, let's discuss them.
David,
and I can explain to Tom what I've done exactly, and other TDs can do what they want to do. But I will do my absolute best, Tom, to represent the people of this city and county.
Tom, in response to that briefly, please.
I made a statement this morning that I know is correct because it's a freedom of information request. There was 2 billion allocated to hospitals in Cork and 30,000 to Waterford. Are you aware of that? Recently, this happened only very, very recently.
David?
No, that's not the case. In fact, I spoke to the hospital manager yesterday and the day before yesterday about the capital plan, and she was actually happy with some of what has been committed to. The hospital gets tens of millions of euro every year in terms of its revenue budget, and then it gets capital funding. There are major problems in the hospital, Tom. I wrote a document on it which just bear with me for a second, Tom.
Or Damien, you can check it out.
But bear with me for a second.
There was 2 billion allocated to Cork, 30,000 to Waterford.
But Damien, here's the point on the hospital.
David,
as you know, I met with the hospital manager several times, and I got a list of all of the business cases, all of the funding applications which had been made by the hospital to increase capacity. I put it into a document, as you saw, and I've followed each and every one of them up. One of them was for a new eye clinic, which we have got over the line, which wasn't going to be the case 6 months ago or a year ago.
And that answers some texts coming in saying talk is cheap, you're not in power, what can you or what have you delivered for Waterford?
Well, we're not in government. And I mean, I remember at the time when there was a discussion about whether John Halligan should go in to government or not and prop up Fine Gael. I met John actually the day afterwards. And I said I have no problem and still have no problem with John going into government. But at the same time, he will prop up a Fine Gael government I don't agree with. I want Sinn Féin to be in government, but I want us to be in government to deliver on all of the things that are important to the people that I represent. But we don't have the numbers. We may or may not have the numbers after the next election, but I'm certainly not afraid of government. I would want us to be in that position. But when I'm in opposition, Damien, here's the point. All I can do in opposition is raise these issues as passionately and as relentlessly as I can, and I do so. And I work with people right across party lines, and again, people inside of business and outside of business. So my offer to Tom again is, I agree with you on lots of the issues that we raise. Let's have a cup of coffee, let's meet, and then we can discuss how we can advance some of these issues.
Have given you that platform to raise that. Tom Murphy, is there a chance you might meet with David Cullinane for...
I have no issue with the man. Honest to God, I have no issue with the man. As I said to you, look, this isn't personal. I'm not doing this for myself. I have nothing to gain. I'm not going for politics. My really thing at this, as I said to you this morning, Damien, 10 years ago, I wouldn't have had the time to make this phone call. My business, my 2 sons are running this business now, and I have a bit more time. I am genuinely more interested about the community, about my grandchildren, everybody else's children who work here. And I said, and I'll say this again, go down next Sunday evening, or the first Sunday evening that the universities are back, down to the quay, and it'll break your heart to see our brightest and best getting onto buses. 95% of them never come back. That's what I'm trying to stop.
Tom Murphy... Thank you, Tom Murphy. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. I really appreciate it.
Good luck. Bye.
Thank you very much. David Cullinan, thank you very much for joining us this morning, and we will be back and do another in-depth interview next week. You ready for that?
I look forward to it.
And I'll be as easy on you as I was with Mary Butler. Is that what you're saying?
Very soft, so.
Deisha Today with Damien Tiernan on WLR.
With thanks to mulliganspharmacy.com. Life's a beach with Mulligan's Pharmacies. Open late on the Dunmore Road and Intramore.
Now, our timings have ran all over the place because of that interview. We decided to let it run, and we let David speak as well, as you heard me say. And it's in terms of trying to direct that interview in a certain way to try and get enough people to talk. And loads of people texting and commenting, saying Tom Murphy is right, others saying that David Cullinan is right, others saying both of them are passionate about their city and county, and they need to get together and have a cup of tea. So with that, we have just run out of time. We have a few ads to take before the 12 o'clock news, because ads are what make this station work. Thank you, everybody, for your support. Thanks for listening. Thanks for texting. Thanks very much, Jennifer, for producing. Thanks, Aisling, for putting the interviews up on Facebook. And we are here tomorrow. Jeff is up next. Keep listening. Thanks very much.